Hi, everybody. I am back. Um, I want to make a quick live today, and this is probably going to um, maybe be a multi-part kind of series of discussions with you guys, but I want to get the ball rolling today. So, if you've been following my channel or reading my blog for any period of time, you know that I suffered a significant amount of abuse when I was a child within the United Pentecostal Church. And some of it was child SA, and some of it was, it was all covered and not really dealt with appropriately at the time that it happened. The United Pentecostal Church has a program now called Safe Church that they are encouraging people to go through. They are encouraging them to submit a complaint and then be interviewed. And then from there, they decide whether or not they think that they need to do an investigation. All of this is handled at the district level. So, a lot of how your case proceeds and how you're treated in the process has to do with what kind of district you're in. So, if you're in a more moderate district, you might be treated better than if you're in a very patriarchal, misogynistic district like the one that I grew up in. So, not everyone across the board is going to have the same experience when they go through this process. So, I started out the process by having a discussion with David Bernard. I've spoken to him on the phone, and I've also spoken to him through email. I also, through that discussion with David Bernard, he put me in contact with Lisa Reddy, who kind of runs their Safe Church program. And she goes around and she educates UPCI ministers on the appropriate ways to handle cases like mine, where either a minister has done some sort of essay type of thing with a child or a young adult, or if they've covered it up, like what my case was. And so I had a lot of contact with her. And then eventually I did have contact with Jim Booker, who is the district superintendent for the state of Wisconsin. And through him, I had further contact with some other ministers who were put in charge of the investigation that happened in my state. So it is a very arduous process. And I knew how it was going to turn out. Like, I knew I was not going to get an apology in the way that I wanted to. And I knew that I was not going to get the satisfaction that I really wanted, like an admission of guilt, an apology, and an attempt at sort of some kind of restorative action. I knew I wasn't going to get any of that when I went into the process, but the reason for going through the process is that I am committed to doing whatever I can to bring justice for the survivors in my survivor group, but also for myself, and to also create an atmosphere of safety for the young people that are still involved in the Wisconsin district of the UPCI. So I have had hours and hours and hours and hours of phone conversations with different people from the UPCI. I have had many, many email exchanges, and it all culminated in me being asked to come and relate my story to these men who had been assigned to do this investigation. So I and some other survivors were asked to come and meet with them face to face. This was really difficult because I didn't know them, and it's traumatic enough having to go back and talk to the UPCI, but like I didn't know these men, and there wasn't any point during my interaction with them where they said, "Hey, bring a support person," or, we're going to have um, a mental health professional here to make sure that you're okay during this process. They did allow me to bring a support person, but I had to ask them, is it okay for me to bring a support person? Um, they were not really clear about what they wanted to ask me or even what the process was. So while I'm relating to them all of this really traumatic stuff, they are talking over each other and stopping me and having to ask each other questions about what they should be asking or not asking or whatever. So I went through that process. It was very anxiety inducing and unpleasant for me. And then I kind of had to wait for a long time without really any kind of update from them. When I did, the one time that I did go directly to Jim Booker and ask him for an update, I was told, well, we're following the process. And so I replied and said, could you please give us, the survivors, some kind of idea where you are in the process so we know, like, how much longer is this process going to take? And I didn't get a reply when I asked that. So I felt all the way through that although they were giving a lot of lip service to wanting to be sensitive to survivors, to wanting to be sensitive towards the trauma that I've experienced, nothing about the process or the way that they executed it was sensitive. So, we're not going to tell you that you can bring a support person. We're not going to provide like a mental health professional to be there to make sure that we're not re traumatizing you. We're not going to give you any updates. We're just going to kind of leave you hanging. And when you ask us, we're just not going to answer. None of that, when you have all of the complex PTSD, like related anxiety and stuff that I have, none of that is conducive to me feeling safe dealing with these people. So it ended up that at the end of it all, John Grant got probation for a year. And I mean, all that means, and I even had to ask them, what does that mean? Because when they sent me the certified letter saying this is what our ruling is, they didn't actually explain the parameters of what probation entails. So I had to ask them. And what I found out was it means that he can't preach and he can't teach for a year. Well, this is a man who isn't in the pulpit anymore. His son is. And so I look at it and I'm like, this isn't really a punishment. I wanted them to pull his license because I felt like the enormity of all of the victim stories that he covered up and the environment of sexual misconduct that he fostered within his church really meant that he should not continue to hold a UPCI license. Now, they did remove him from the Hall of Faith. I mean, okay, I know that that hurts his legacy, and I know that that probably hurts his pride, but he still holds a license. And I just don't see how. I mean, I get it that they don't have anyone that stepped forward and said he did these activities, but there is so much evidence that he purposefully covered up and promoted men, covered up for men who committed these acts. it's not one person, it's not two people, it's not three people. Like there's so many. Just within his own church, I can't even imagine what his greater influence throughout the district ended up being at the end of it all. Um, at the end of it all, the only thing that they took action against was the fact that he promoted uh, Glenn Uselman, who is now serving prison time. He promoted him to uh, to be a minister, and that was the thing that they wanted him to confess to and apologize to. So it felt to me like he did something to them. He broke one of their rules. And so they wanted an apology from him to them, but they did not seek an apology from him to the survivors, which were the whole reason why this investigation even happened. So, from my perspective, I went through this whole process for nothing. And, you know, eh, if they, as a district, had been willing to do what I originally suggested when I spoke to David Bernard and Jim Booker, which was get the transcripts from Glenn Uselman's trial, they would have known that John Grant did these things. He testified to his role in Glenn Uselman's situation. They could have done the same thing that they did at the end of it all without involving the survivors, without bringing us in and asking us to testify. Which, by the way, when we did go in and talk to them, they recorded us. But at the end of it all, when I was requesting a conversation with them about why this whole investigation went the way that it went, they would only have a conversation with me if I agreed that they wouldn't be recorded. And that seemed kind of crazy to me because, like, uh, if you want to record me and get everything that I'm saying on the record, then why would you not allow me to do the same thing? And it's also funny because, like, I had no intention of secretly recording them. And I think it's just a projection of how they interact with people, that they think that someone might do that to them. It also makes me wonder, like, what are you going to say when you talk to survivors that you're so afraid of anyone knowing? Um, I received this certified letter, which I was expecting. It was very cold. It was very calculated. It was clearly written by like an attorney. And it just didn't really show a lot of empathy or care for survivors. And when I made it known that I didn't appreciate that and that I thought it was not appropriate for people who are supposedly like followers of Christ, then I got a very last minute phone call from Save Church saying, we would like, Jim Booker would like to meet with you in the morning. He wants everybody to be there. He only wants to do it like if everyone can be there because he only wants to do it once. And he can't be recorded and it has to be tomorrow morning, which, mind you, when they notified me, it was like 8:30 at night and I wasn't even home. So like the chance of me being able to corral everybody into a Zoom call by the next morning was next to nothing. So, it didn't feel like a genuine offer. It felt like a thrown together at the last minute thing that they knew I probably wouldn't be able to accomplish. They could have taken the steps to reach out to all of the survivors themselves and invite them in, but they didn't do that. They expected me to do it. And so that was just unrealistic. And at that point, I said no. I'm very tired. This whole process has really tired me out. And I feel like I really didn't get anything out of it. Um, I didn't really, it stressed me out. It re traumatized me in a lot of ways. And Yeah, it was just overall it was a very negative experience, and um they keep saying that they feel bad and they're praying for us, and they've done everything they can do, but I just don't believe that. I mean, when you're a child growing up in a church like that, like this, and you're exposed as being a victim of SA, they bring down the hammer so hard on those survivors. A lot of them are removed from ministries that they're involved in. They're removed from the choir. Sometimes they're removed from the school. But you're judged, and you're judged harshly by the church. But when it's a pastor who has done terrible things, suddenly there's nothing they can do. There's no action they can take. There's nothing they can do to address the inappropriate behavior by this pastor. So as a survivor, this is just my opinion. You have to weigh this out for yourself and talk to the people that you love. I would not recommend anyone go through the Safe Church program, process, whatever you want to call it. I think at the end of it all, you're not going to get what you're looking for. And the chances of it going the way that you want it to go, it's a real roll of the dice. Like I said, it depends on where you live and what district you have. And I don't feel like the people running the program and the ministers themselves that are running the districts take trauma seriously enough, are trauma informed enough to understand how to appropriately handle these situations. I do not believe that they are sensitive to survivors. I do believe that all of their sensitivity lies in protecting ministers and protecting themselves and the way they look and their positions. That's where their sensitivity lies. That's where their great care lies. Their great care does not lie in shepherding survivors through this process. So, from my perspective, I would not recommend that anyone go through Safe Church. I think it could potentially be really traumatizing and just make things so much worse for survivors. So I'm not sure if you guys are going to have questions about this or not. I feel like I just kind of spewed this all out, and you may or you may not have questions. If you do have questions, you can always put them in the chat. You can email me at survivingchurchandchildhood@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at my blog, Surviving Church and Childhood. There are lots of different ways you can reach out to me. But if you are thinking about going through this process, or you just want to ask me questions about the process, please feel free to reach out. I did not find it to be a positive experience, and I would not recommend it. And like I said in my last live, looking for justice in a toxic system in the place that you were hurt probably is not going to work out. You need to look for justice where you see justice happening, and you need to seek justice in the ways that you can, but go into it for the right reason. So, like, if you're going into this process with Safe Church and you're doing it to make a point to say, hey, to shine a light and say, hey, these people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, then that's a fantastic reason to do it. But just know that you're probably not going to get compassion, empathy, or apology from these people. I got a lot of TLC, or attempted TLC, I'll say, from Lisa Reddy at Safe Church. But she wasn't the one who owed me an apology, right? It was John Grant, and I didn't get that from him. And I'm getting a lot from the Wisconsin district, a lot of, we're praying for you. We hope that you heal, all of this kind of stuff, without actually doing things like saying, John Grant, if you want to retain your license, you need to give an apology to these survivors, like without doing the hard thing. So to me, it just feels like hopes and prayers, right? And not real action. So I'm sure I'm going to have more to say as I process everything that's happened. And I'll be back soon, I'm sure. There are a lot of things I want to talk about on this channel that don't have to do with just like the essay stuff. So if there are things that you would like to hear me talk about, please leave a comment or send me an email, and I will try to address those topics. So I hope you guys are having a good week. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon. Bye.